The handcuffs clicked shut at 6:28 a.m. on September 19, 2025, exactly 20 years after Elena Vasquez, the 24-year-old multimedia artist and rising star of New York's underground art scene, vanished from her studio in Chelsea. When NYPD detectives led away 59-year-old Professor Gabriel Hartwell, the distinguished chairman of Parsons School of Design's Fine Arts Department and Elena's former mentor, the collective gasp could be heard from gallery openings in Soho to faculty lounges at prestigious art schools across Manhattan. Professor Hartwell wasn't just another art educator. He was a legend, the man who had discovered and launched the careers of 3 generations of contemporary artists, whose gallery connections could make or break emerging talent, and whose recommendation letters were golden tickets to the most competitive residencies and exhibitions in the world. He was also the man who had organized the search for Elena when she disappeared, who had spoken movingly at her memorial exhibition, and who had established a scholarship in her name for promising young artists who dare to push boundaries. But as the NYPD would reveal in the damning evidence that followed, Professor Gabriel Hartwell had been hiding the most calculated secret in the art world's history. Elena Vasquez was everything the New York art scene had been waiting for in the mid-2000s. At 24, she possessed the rare combination of technical mastery, conceptual innovation, and raw charisma that separated true artists from mere practitioners. Her multimedia installations, combining video art, performance, and interactive technology, were pushing the boundaries of what art could be in the digital age. With her striking Latina features, fierce dark eyes, and the kind of confident presence that commanded attention in any room, Elena had become the face of a new generation of artists who weren't content to simply create beautiful objects. She wanted to change how people experienced art, how they thought about identity and technology, and the increasingly complex relationship between the digital and physical worlds. Elena wasn't just talented, she was prophetic. In 2005, when MySpace was still the dominant social platform and Facebook was restricted to college students, Elena was already creating interactive installations that explored how technology would reshape human connection. Her piece, Virtual Intimacy, had visitors connect with strangers through computer interfaces, predicting the social media relationships that would define the next decade. Her work was getting noticed by the people who mattered. The Whitney Biennial had shortlisted her for 2006 inclusion. The Guggenheim had offered her a solo exhibition for 2007. Art Forum had featured her on their cover as one of 10 artists to watch. At 24, Elena was on the verge of the kind of success most artists never achieve. But Elena was more than her professional accomplishments. Friends described her as fiercely loyal, intellectually generous, and deeply committed to supporting other artists, particularly young women and artists of color, who were struggling to break into the notoriously exclusive New York art world. On October 15, 2005, Elena was putting the finishing touches on her most ambitious project yet, Surveillance State, an installation that would occupy the entire ground floor of a prestigious Chelsea gallery. The piece used early digital video technology to create an immersive environment where visitors became simultaneously voyeurs and subjects, watchers and watched. Elena's roommate and closest friend, Maria Santos, was the last person to see her alive. Maria, also an art student at Parsons, had stopped by Elena's studio at 11:30 p.m. to bring her dinner and check on her progress. Elena was excited but exhausted, Maria later told investigators. She'd been working 18-hour days for weeks, trying to get everything perfect for the opening. She said this exhibition would either make her career or convince her to give up art entirely. Security footage from the building's lobby showed Elena leaving her studio at 2:47 a.m. on October 16, carrying her laptop bag and a large portfolio case. She appeared animated, talking on her flip phone as she walked toward the exit. The conversation seemed pleasant. She was smiling and gesturing with her free hand. The footage showed Elena getting into a black sedan that was waiting outside the building. The license plate wasn't clearly visible, but investigators later determined the car belonged to Professor Gabriel Hartwell. Elena never returned to her studio. The next morning, when she failed to appear for a crucial meeting with gallery curators about her upcoming exhibition, Maria went to check on her. She found the studio exactly as Elena had left it. Works in progress scattered across tables, coffee cups still warm, her signature red jacket hanging on a hook by the door. Professor Hartwell was among the first people Maria called when she couldn't find Elena. As Elena's primary mentor at Parsons and the faculty member who had been most instrumental in securing her gallery representation, he seemed the logical person to contact about her whereabouts. Gabriel seemed genuinely concerned, Detective Robert Chun recalled years later. He immediately came to the studio, helped us search for clues, and started making calls to gallery owners and other faculty members. He appeared to be doing everything possible to help find Elena. The NYPD treated Elena's disappearance as a priority case from the moment it was reported. The combination of her rising profile in the art world, the valuable artwork in her studio, and the complete lack of evidence suggesting she had left voluntarily made foul play seem likely from the beginning. The initial investigation revealed several troubling facts. Elena's cell phone, a blue Motorola flip phone that she never went anywhere without, was found in a dumpster 6 blocks from her studio. The phone had been completely destroyed, as if someone had taken a hammer to it repeatedly. More disturbing was the state of Elena's digital files. Her laptop, which contained years of artwork and project files, had been reformatted, a process that would have required technical knowledge Elena didn't possess. All of her backup drives were missing from the studio, along with the portfolio case she had been carrying when she left the building. The investigation expanded to include Elena's entire professional and personal network. Detectives interviewed everyone from gallery owners to fellow art students, from professors to the tech support staff who had helped Elena with her digital installations. What emerged was a picture of a young woman who was beloved by her peers, but who had also been navigating increasingly complex professional relationships as her career accelerated. Several people mentioned that Elena had seemed stressed about politics in the art world, and had expressed concerns about people who wanted to control her work. Professor Hartwell was interviewed extensively as both a mentor and potential witness. He provided detailed information about Elena's recent projects, her state of mind, and any potential threats she might have faced. His cooperation seemed complete and his emotional investment appeared genuine. Hartwell told investigators that he and Elena had been working closely on securing her gallery representation and planning her career trajectory. He claimed their relationship had been purely professional and that he had no knowledge of any personal problems that might have led to her disappearance. When asked about his whereabouts on the night Elena vanished, Hartwell said he had been at home grading student portfolios. His wife corroborated his alibi, though investigators noted that she seemed nervous during the interview. The case began to go cold as leads dried up and potential suspects were eliminated. Elena's family hired private investigators and offered rewards for information. Her fellow artists organized benefits and exhibitions to keep her case in the public eye. Most notably, Professor Hartwell became a leading advocate for finding Elena. He organized an annual memorial exhibition featuring her work, established the Elena Vasquez Scholarship for emerging multimedia artists, and frequently spoke to media about the need to find answers to her disappearance. The art world mourned Elena as a visionary whose best work had been cut short by tragedy. Her unfinished installation, Surveillance State, was completed posthumously by a team of her fellow artists and became one of the most powerful and haunting exhibitions of the decade. Detective Lisa Rodriguez joined the NYPD's Cold Case Unit in 2020, 15 years after Elena's disappearance. Rodriguez specialized in cases involving violence against women, and brought both modern investigative techniques and a fresh perspective to unsolved cases. Rodriguez's review of the Elena Vasquez case began in 2024, focusing on digital evidence that might not have been properly analyzed using 2005-era technology. She was particularly interested in the destroyed cell phone and reformatted laptop, believing they might contain recoverable information using modern forensic methods. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a digital storage device that had been overlooked during the original investigation. Hidden in a false bottom of Elena's studio desk was a USB drive containing encrypted files that investigators in 2005 hadn't been able to access. Using advanced decryption software that didn't exist 20 years earlier, Rodriguez was able to extract the contents of the drive. What she found there would expose 20 years of lies and manipulation. The files revealed that Elena had been documenting a disturbing pattern of sexual harassment and professional exploitation by Professor Hartwell. Her notes detailed years of inappropriate behavior, including unwanted touching during critiques, explicit comments about her appearance, and increasingly aggressive attempts to control her career and personal life. Most damaging were audio recordings Elena had made using the primitive digital recording technology available in 2005. The recordings captured conversations between Elena and Professor Hartwell, where he explicitly threatened to destroy her career if she didn't comply with his sexual demands. "You seem to forget that I made your career," Hartwell could be heard saying in one recording dated September 2005. "I can just as easily unmake it. No gallery in this city will touch your work if I tell them not to. You think your little installation is going to get shown if I say you're difficult to work with." The recordings revealed that Elena had been trying to break free from Hartwell's control while protecting her career prospects. She had been secretly documenting his behavior and consulting with lawyers about possible legal action. But most chilling was the final recording, made just days before Elena disappeared. In it, Elena confronted Hartwell directly about his behavior and threatened to go public with evidence of his harassment. "I'm done being your victim," Elena could be heard saying. "I have recordings, I have witnesses, and I have documentation of everything you've done. If you don't leave me alone, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." Hartwell's response was captured clearly on the recording. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, Elena. I've been protecting young women like you for decades. Some of them learned to be grateful. Others, well, let's just say their careers took different directions." Armed with this explosive evidence, Rodriguez obtained warrants to search Hartwell's home and office. What she found there confirmed Elena's allegations and revealed the scope of his predatory behavior. Hidden in Hartwell's private office were dozens of files on female students and emerging artists, containing photographs, personal information, and detailed notes about their vulnerabilities and potential for exploitation. The files revealed a systematic pattern of targeting young women artists, particularly those from minority backgrounds who had fewer resources and support systems. More damaging were Hartwell's personal communications from 2005, recovered from old email accounts and digital storage devices. The messages showed that he had been planning Elena's elimination for weeks before her disappearance, recognizing that her evidence could destroy his career and reputation. The Vasquez problem needs a permanent solution, Hartwell had written to an encrypted email contact in September 2005. "She's too dangerous to leave in play. Arrange the usual cleanup protocols." The messages revealed connections to individuals who specialized in making problems disappear, criminal associates who operated in the gray areas between legitimate business and organized crime. Hartwell had apparently used these connections before to silence accusers and eliminate threats to his position. Digital forensics experts found evidence that Hartwell had used his administrative access at Parsons to delete files, alter records, and cover up complaints against him. He had also used university resources to conduct surveillance on Elena and other students who might pose threats to his activities. Confronted with this overwhelming evidence, Hartwell initially maintained his innocence and claimed the recordings had been fabricated. But as additional evidence mounted, including DNA evidence recovered from Elena's studio using modern techniques not available in 2005, his story began to crumble. The confession came during Hartwell's fourth interrogation session with Detective Rodriguez and FBI agents who had joined the case due to its connection to organized criminal activity. After 20 years of living with his secret, Professor Gabriel Hartwell finally revealed what had happened to Elena Vasquez on October 16, 2005. According to Hartwell's confession, he had lured Elena from her studio that night by claiming he had urgent news about her gallery exhibition. He claimed he had only intended to convince her to destroy the recordings and maintain their professional relationship. But when Elena refused and reiterated her threats to expose him, Hartwell panicked. He admitted to strangling her in his car, then calling his criminal contacts to dispose of her body and eliminate evidence. Hartwell confessed that Elena's body had been disposed of in a construction site that was being developed at the time. The area had since been built over, making recovery impossible. He had spent the following days systematically destroying evidence and creating false alibis. The confession explained the meticulous cover-up that had allowed Hartwell to avoid suspicion for 20 years. His position of authority at Parsons had given him access to resources and credibility that made his denials believable. His public participation in the search efforts had been calculated to monitor the investigation and maintain his reputation as a concerned mentor. Most disturbing was Hartwell's revelation that Elena wasn't his first victim. Over the decades, he had orchestrated the disappearances of at least 4 other young women artists who had threatened to expose his behavior. Their cases had never been connected because they had occurred in different cities as Hartwell moved between prestigious academic positions. The arrest of Professor Gabriel Hartwell sent shockwaves through the international art world that reverberated from New York galleries to art schools across the globe. For 20 years, the art community had mourned Elena Vasquez as a promising artist whose life had been cut short by random violence. The revelation that she had been murdered by her most trusted mentor, a man who had built his reputation on nurturing young talent while systematically exploiting and eliminating those who resisted, shattered the art world's sense of safety and trust. Elena's family, her parents Carlos and Isabel Vasquez and her younger brother Diego, finally had answers to the questions that had tormented them for 2 decades. But the truth brought devastating realization about how completely they had been deceived. He spoke at Elena's memorial service. Isabel Vasquez said through tears at the press conference announcing the arrest. He talked about what a bright light she was, how much potential she had, how the art world had lost something irreplaceable, all while knowing he had snuffed out that light himself. The trial of Professor Gabriel Hartwell began in April 2025 and lasted 5 months. The prosecution, led by Manhattan District Attorney Sarah Kim, presented a methodical case built on digital evidence, audio recordings, and testimony from surviving victims of Hartwell's decades-long pattern of abuse. The defense team attempted to argue that the recordings had been fabricated and that Hartwell was being framed by enemies seeking to destroy his reputation. They portrayed him as a dedicated educator who had devoted his life to supporting young artists. But the jury wasn't convinced by the defense arguments. The physical evidence was overwhelming, and testimony from multiple victims painted a clear picture of systematic predation that had escalated to murder when exposed. After deliberating for 16 hours over 3 days, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all charges: first-degree murder, sexual harassment, abuse of authority, and racketeering. The evidence showed that Hartwell had not only killed Elena but had operated a criminal enterprise based on exploiting vulnerable young artists. Judge Michael Rodriguez sentenced Professor Gabriel Hartwell to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus additional terms for the other crimes. At 59 years old, Hartwell will spend the remainder of his life behind bars for crimes that had remained hidden for 20 years. During the sentencing hearing, several of Hartwell's surviving victims testified about the abuse they had suffered and the ways it had damaged their careers and lives. Their testimony revealed the scope of his predatory behavior and the institutional failures that had enabled it to continue. Rebecca Martinez, now a successful gallery owner who had been one of Hartwell's students in the 1990s, addressed the court directly. Professor Hartwell destroyed Elena's life and stole her art from the world, but he also damaged dozens of other women who survived his abuse. The art world failed Elena by protecting his reputation instead of listening to his victims. Her death must be a wake-up call for systemic change. The Parsons School of Design terminated Hartwell's employment and launched a comprehensive review of its policies regarding faculty-student relationships. The school has since implemented stronger reporting mechanisms, mandatory training programs, and independent oversight of sexual harassment allegations. Elena Vasquez's legacy lives on through the Elena Vasquez Foundation for Artist Safety, established by her family to support young artists while advocating for safer educational and professional environments. The foundation has pushed for legislative changes requiring background checks for art educators and mandatory reporting procedures for suspected abuse. Elena died trying to protect other young artists from a predator, Carlos Vasquez said at the foundation's inaugural event. Her courage in documenting his crimes ultimately brought him to justice, even though it cost her everything. Through this foundation, her fight for justice continues. The case has become a landmark in ongoing conversations about abuse of power in artistic communities. It has highlighted the vulnerability of young artists who depend on influential mentors for career advancement, and the ways predators can use institutional protection to continue their crimes. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a psychologist specializing in abuse in creative fields, consulted on the case and its broader implications. The Elena Vasquez case illustrates how prestigious institutions can become hunting grounds for predators who use their authority to exploit vulnerable young people. When complaints are dismissed or covered up to protect institutional reputation, patterns of abuse remain hidden and predators are free to continue targeting new victims. The art world has implemented significant changes in response to Elena's case. Major galleries, museums, and art schools have established independent reporting systems for harassment allegations, mandatory training programs for faculty and staff, and regular oversight from outside organizations. Contemporary artists have also embraced Elena's work as prophetic and revolutionary. Her installation Surveillance State, completed posthumously, is now recognized as one of the most important artworks of the early digital age, anticipating many of the privacy and surveillance issues that define contemporary life. As of today, September 20th, 2025, Professor Gabriel Hartwell remains in New York State Prison, where he is serving his life sentence. He has shown no remorse for his crimes and has refused to provide information about the locations of his other victims' remains, depriving their families of closure. The case serves as a stark reminder that artistic genius and predatory behavior are not incompatible, that positions of authority in creative fields can be weaponized against vulnerable young people, and that the pursuit of artistic excellence must never come at the cost of basic human safety and dignity. Elena Vasquez was 24 years old when her life was stolen by someone she trusted to guide her career. Her dreams of revolutionizing contemporary art died with her in a car where she should have been safe, killed by a mentor who had built his reputation on her talent and the talents of countless others. But her memory lives on as a catalyst for change, a reminder that protecting young artists is more important than protecting institutional reputations, and that the art world, like all communities, has a responsibility to create spaces where creativity can flourish without fear. The galleries and studios of New York continue to nurture new generations of artists, but Elena's story serves as a permanent reminder that mentorship without accountability can become predation, and that the most dangerous threats to artistic freedom often come from within the very institutions that claim to support it.